45 kilometers from Bhopal, lie 750 rock shelters that are known as the Bhimbetka rock shelters. The strange thing or the amazing thing about it is the fact that it spans a period of from 2 million years till 10,000 years ago. That is the last relic discovered there would be of 8,000 BC. So it actually captures from the Stone Age till modern age. I'm saying modern age, 10,000 years ago is also considered as modern age, when agriculture has begun, when various cultures have come to dominance. The conversation began in the Paleolithic age. So take your pick. It is still not decided as to when speech really began, but it could be from 2 million till 50,000 years ago. These are the Bhimbetka caves. Only about 18 have been opened, and the rest are yet to be opened. History tells us that these rock shelters depict the human voyage from Stone Age to a more recent time for a rare glimpse into human settlement and cultural evolution. From hunters-gatherers to agriculture and expressions of prehistoric spirituality. Now, these drawings that you see here they are the real story here. मान लीजिए कि the hunters have in the morning gone out and done their hunting. And they've come back in the evening and around a fire. So already civilization has moved to using a fire. They're roasting their food and they are eating it while somebody is sitting outside the circle thinking about what all has happened today. That somebody later becomes the person who in the night and in the next day starts painting on the rock face. And these are the paintings that remain to date. They tell us the story of changing civilization. That I would think is the earliest storyteller. And these stories still remain with us. Our civilization is one of oral lore. The oral tradition is something which continues even today. It's a form of human communication wherein knowledge, art, etc. is received, preserved, and transmitted orally from one generation to the next. We are an oral lore civilization with cultural hand-me-downs from one generation to the next, from the grandmother to the mother and onward. Even the Bhagavad Gita is said to have been dictated by Ganesh and written down by Veda Vyas. We are hardwired to hear stories and absorb its learnings. जाहिर है, अगर इतने साल this has been the niti, the riyaj, so naturally we too would be a part of that tradition. Whereas the PowerPoint is something which was begun in 87 by Microsoft. They launched it first 35 years ago. Compare this with the 2 million years or 50,000 years of speech, whatever you prefer, but way more than the 35 years. I'll tell you something, an amusing tale. I was, for about a quarter century, that is 25 years, I've been teaching at the Indian Institute of Mass Comm. And I'm one of the only teachers who does not use any teaching aid but for the head and communicating this oral lore. Because I feel that that is important. And I actually tell my students not to take notes, but to pay their respects by giving me their full concentration. And at the end of the class, to make their own notes. It is possibly also to protect myself कि मैं गलत कुछ अगर बोल दिया तो ये recorded ना रहे. But that's on a lighter vein. But I feel that it's a method which allows for greater absorption and utilizing it later as a learning. So when did PowerPoint become such an integral part of pedagogy? I think it is something which is, over time, we have discovered over the last 3.5 decades that it's a very simple thing to keep a record of it with PowerPoint. And it seems like it has encompassed everything right there for us. तो लगता है कि एक कैप्सूल है जो हम ले ले तो फिर बस ठीक हो जाएंगे जैसे कि वैक्सीन है. However, learning, handing down of that oral lore, they're far more complex than just a PowerPoint. A PowerPoint definitely is indicative of where we are headed towards. But then all storytelling is from the wellspring of creativity. So are we saying that we must all have this genius vision? Let me give you an example or two. Michelangelo would see this block of marble, and within it, he would see the final form, and he would literally chip away what was not required to come up with the final sculpture. A sculpture that had clothes, that had the folds of fabric, a sculpture that showed the veins of human beings. We were walking through in the Vatican, and this is a sculpture that is there in one corner, not really celebrated or anything, and suddenly you see it. It is so stunning. It is so stunning. They just spend hours walking around it, and you know that you're touched by genius. Or like Picasso, who was capable of changing views and thoughts. I don't know how many of you know, but General Franco was running a rightist regime in Spain. And there was an international brigade that was given birth to with people like Hemingway. And the international brigade was trying to bring attention of the world to this monster. Guernica was a small place, a village close to where Picasso came from, which was destroyed by bombing and destroyed by the Franco's Air Force, bombing people of their own country. And this was what came out of it. And Guernica told the world about the violence that was being perpetrated. And it literally changed minds of people around. But we are not all of us as gifted as a Picasso or a Michelangelo. However, each one of us has a unique tale. And there is the everyday intervention. So I'll go back to some more everyday interventions. When I decided to start my CSR company, I realized that थोड़े बहुत किए हैं हम काम. मैंने चाइल्ड लाइन लॉन्च की है, मैंने ये किया वो किया. But what is it? It amounts to nothing. If I'm going to get into CSR, why would a company entrust me with their funds? So I decided that we had to do something which was out of the ordinary. 1999 में मैं सुनील दत्त साहब के साथ, सुनील दत्त साहब was an actor, and दत्त साहब के साथ we were on a journey across South Asia, talking about the common possibilities of progress and why there must be peace. We called it Hands Across the Borders. हर दिन शाम होने के बाद, after sunset, that's how I used to sit in my car. We had 6 cars. And he would be driving one of the cars in the day, but soon as it was sunset, he would come and sit in my car because he was not very confident about driving in the dark. 72 साल के थे उस वक्त. खैर, एक दिन हम चला रहे थे. We actually drove 27,000 kilometers in 2 months and 20 days. खैर, we were driving somewhere through UP, and in our headlights there were a lot of women. It was pitch dark, of course, and they were just waiting for us to pass. I'm sure you can guess what they were waiting there for. Datsar turned around and said to me in his wonderfully innocent way, "Yaar bata Bengali, itne sex workers hain kya?" I said, "Datsar, I am surprised ki aapko pata nahi hai. They're all waiting for us to pass so that they can use the darkness to do whatever they have wanted to do all day and have been restraining themselves." For the men, it is no trial, no tribulation. हम जहाँ मर्जी करते हैं, जैसे कि हम अपने देश में देखते रहते हैं, against the walls, in the woods, in the forests, on busy streets, on the sides. But women, especially in villages, have to restrain themselves all day to be able to go to the toilet. उसी वक्त मेरे दिमाग में ये आइडिया आने लगा, which later, many years later, 14 years later, actually found expression. I decided to make a toilet for women. Now, I'm not a technologist, nor am I somebody who's into software in a big way. But I thought that we could make a toilet exclusively for women. Now, it's important to understand that women also use this toilet break, so to say, to talk amongst each other, to chat, to gossip, all of it vital and very important tasks. So I decided that instead of making it small, individually contained toilets, it would be a little larger, using about 4 different toilets at the same time. अब आप कैसे exclusively women के लिए करें? Because if you do use a key, जाहिर है, the husband will take it. If you give a combination lock, the panchayat leader will take it from you. So what do? So we decided to go the way that most technologies in modern times do, which is using some form of identification other than key or lock. But there was another problem. For instance, if you went into the fingerprint, मुझे याद आया कि my father used to work in tobacco. So at harvest time, ITC में थे, at harvest time they would go out, all senior managers also, with a gunman because they were carrying money. there was a safe, and there were weighing scales, and they would literally be buying tobacco. But in the soil of Andhra Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, the soil is so fine, the topsoil, that women's thumbs unfortunately would stop having prints. मुझे ये याद आया. Now, I was putting together this project with my own money, so I didn't have the luxury of doing wide area research. But हमने मेरे दो दोस्त को हमने यहाँ भेजी यूपी में कि आसपास जाके जरा देख भाई. And they discovered that the women who make 60, 70 chapatis a day are using their hands to work in the wheat and the flour. And that clogs their fingerprints, and they are absolutely smooth. So what do? We decided to use a camera that looks at the iris, because the iris does not change from birth to death. Regardless of आप कितना power हुए, whatever, the iris signature remains the same. And the modern cameras, they are very good. You don't even need to stare at it. You just have to put your eyes by it, and that's good enough. So we put that. Once the woman's eye looks into it, that iris identification would be checked with your Aadhaar identification on the Aadhaar cloud, and the message would come back and the solenoid would open. You go in and the door would shut. So this could be an exclusively women's toilet. On a cloudy day when the signals were a little uncertain, 28 से 30 सेकंड लगती थी. Now for women who had been used to waiting hours, 28 से 30 seconds was not a problem at all. But what was I really doing? I was just spinning a story, nothing else. Because I was doing it out of the creativity of my own senses, saying, अच्छा ये करके ऐसे करे तो फिर कैसे होगा? We put on a small little computer at the back of the door lock, and that's what did all the work. And UIDAI became our partners. They took the story further forward with us, to the extent that they said that if you ever have any area that you're going into where Aadhaar has not had its footprint, inform us. We will send our people and we will get it done. So, proof of concept banaye, and suddenly I realized that the government was helping me, possibly the only time. Swachh Bharat ki abhiyan shuru hui, and as a result, I was able to do a lot of work around toilets and sanitation. We put it up only in the girls' schools all across North India. And we also put in things like little pads with pencils so that you could just write down what you thought of it. We also had space for putting away your soiled monthly period sanitary napkins, etc., which could be extinguished and burnt later. These toilets were all over North India. However, सारे वक्त ये टॉयलेट पे काम करने के बाद मुझे तो लगा कि फिनाइल मेरे दिमाग में और मेरे सपनों में भी आ गए. So I started looking at what else, and the story kept unfolding. I realized in a chat with a gentleman from AIMS that we lacked big data. Big data मतलब आपको समझ आई होगी. Across the board. You know, rural India is very represented or underrepresented in our data. So जब हम कहते हैं कि 12% are diabetics, ये थोड़ी extension of reality होती है, because it's not based on reality. It is based on a study and then extrapolation of that. So we decided that why not try and do something that could take big data from the ground, literally, from villages where there was no existence of any collection of data. So what we did is we had this device which could do 32 different tests, and two boys would go out on motorcycles and they would go and set up a little camp of sorts and examine people there. The story gets more and more refined in usage. Having done all that, we would then go to a certain place, or as close as possible to some kind of urban society, जहाँ पे आप upload कर सकते थे. So a villager, say in Anantnag, who has not had any testing till now, could now go online and download information that was already kept there for them. This began an interesting journey, and I think my Wikipedia talks about 60,000, but we have actually completed more than 87,000 villages across India. But of course, it is something which is dependent on CSR, unfortunately. Therefore, it is not something which has been embraced widely across the line. I'm just trying very hard to make governments buy into it. This saves the government lots of money. That you don't have to do it only when there is an emergency, but you already know it's coming. Also, modern living and civilization makes us lazier, stops us from doing the traditional ways of work, which brings about various kinds of diseases and lifestyle sicknesses. For instance, rising diabetes or rising blood pressure problems. So I'll tell you another little story connected to this. We were doing it in a place which is called Tapukara, close to Delhi, just 100 kilometers from here. But Tapukara's soil was very rich for industries to move in. So there were lots of industries which were coming in there and buying up land in large packets and setting up their factories. Result, वहाँ के जो किसान थे वो और अपने वो काम नहीं करते थे जो अपने बाप दादा करते रहे थे. They were suddenly flush with money and didn't know what to do about it. Like this one guy who asked me कि सर जी शाम में आप मेरे साथ जरा आइएगा, मैं आपको अपना नया घर दिखाऊंगा. मैं कहा बहुत खूब. तो हम शाम के इंतजार किए, काम खत्म हो गया, यहाँ पे कैंप पैकअप हुई, मैं उनके साथ उनके गाड़ी में गया. He was driving a very good car, a Ford Endeavour, and but he was wearing jeans and a t-shirt on top. जब वो पहुंचे अपने गांव, there was this one house in the middle of nowhere, and it was built in that railway architecture style: room, bathroom, bathroom. All the lights were on inside, but there was no furniture. And then this man turned around and said, I've sold my land. I've made a lot of money. But मुझे पता नहीं इसका करूं क्या. No one had advised them about investment. So there was a lot of concern and worry about what is going to happen in the future. And as a result, lifestyle diseases started preying on them. Very high incidence of diabetes, very high incidence of high pressure. But the creative expression that uplifts and transforms us creates special understanding and inspires us all. As I was telling you, these two little stories that I shared with you, they helped me to redefine myself, my own understanding कि मैं अपने देश के लिए क्या कुछ कर सकता हूँ. That question could be answered by these stories. But the question is always how to bring hope in a situation that seems impossible, where everything is loaded against hope. How do you bring about any kind of change in it? I started thinking in relation to our class today, to our conversation today. There must be situations of similar hopelessness where storytelling has played a role in turning things around. And I thought the best example was a film called Life is Beautiful. So, it's a much awarded and applauded film by Roberto Benigni, who also acts in the film. And it's based on the book, In the End, I Beat Hitler. It won the Cannes Award, Oscar for Best Foreign Film, Best Actor for Benigni. Until Crouching Tiger, it was the largest, highest grossing foreign language film. It's an unforgettable tale. This is the poster for the film. How this man comes to Tuscany, falls in love with this girl, kidnaps his love from her engagement, and they get married, and Gaiso is born. Gaiso is this little boy. Soon thereafter, in 1944, Benigni, the role that he's playing, and Gaiso, his son, and his uncle, are arrested by the Gestapo and taken to a concentration camp. Benigni's father had been at the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. And as they are being taken away, his wife joins them just so that she can be with them. But unfortunately, the men and women are separated. Now, from here on, the film is a remarkable tale of human resilience. Benigni begins his conversation with his son and converts everything into a game and says, you must do everything here without complaint. And if you can do it without complaint, then points are added to you. And the one with the highest points will win a battle tank. This young boy starts playing the game. And the problems of society, the problems of that Gestapo concentration camp, they're all seen as a game. As if they're challenges thrown up to this little boy. And he comes out of these challenges. I don't want to tell you everything because I want you to discover it and see the film for yourselves. Ultimately, right at the end, the father is killed by the Germans. But little Gaiso goes out He's saved by these tank commanders, and he believes that this is the tank that is his spoils of the war, so to say. And he meets up with his mother, but his father is no more. This to me was an amazing story of how the human spirit is far greater than just giving in to your surroundings.